Call order the public hearing for the proposed conditional use of the medical office building in the B1 district. 545 Mr. Road. Roll call.
Mr. Cox?
Here.
Mr. Posar?
Here.
Mr. Chabon?
Here.
Mr. Westbrooks?
Here.
Mr. Copeland?
Here.
All right, so that is the item, conditional use for the medical office building. Is there anyone public here to speak? State your name.
Am I the only one?
Yeah, I think so. It's all yours. You got the
Oh,
all
great.
the time you need.
My name is Terry Repack. I live at 8250 Carmen Drive here in Macedonia. And I would like to speak to regarding the conditional use. I actually have no objections to the conditional use medical office building in the B1 district. There have been other precedents set in the city, and I have no problem with that. My concern is that there needs to be some conditions, I believe, set on the approval for the variance. The parking needs to be as required by the code, and I believe that all setbacks and all landscaping needs to be adhered to by the code, and that's in the ordinances for a reason. The site plan, and I think I have an old one because the setbacks are slightly different here than they were in the presentation that's going to be 2 days from now in the BZA. There's a few inches or feet difference in some of the setbacks, so I believe this drawing is not completely accurate, but it's close enough for my purposes. My main concern is that if you approve the construction and the development on this site, you're creating a massive problem for the site behind it. Mr. Koblenz mentioned it in the previous meeting that that site needs to be considered. Right now, there's a home on the site. It's roughly 120 feet of frontage, but it's zoned as B1. The setback requirements, if that site is developed 90 feet from a residential area, which is just to the north of it, 15 feet, I believe, to the south of it against another one, leaves you at a buildable area without variance of 15 by 55 feet. Nobody's going to build anything that's 15 by 55 feet. So what you're doing is forcing the city, if that site is developed separately on a B1 basis, you're forcing the city to give massive variances to whoever wants to develop that at the expense of the next homeowner to the north, which is in a residential developed area. Now that person deserves a 90-foot setback, just like every other residential site adjacent to a business zone. But if you don't combine, if you don't insist and require that the two sites be combined and developed contiguously, then you are depriving that particular homeowner of the 90-foot setback that he deserves, and also going to be reducing the value of his property considerably if that site is ever developed in business, into a business use. The other, I mentioned parking, and I know it has nothing to do with the variance that's requested tonight, but Mr. Westbrooks, I believe you are incorrect in using a sign ordinance to determine frontage of the building. And I'll give you this piece of paper which has the ordinance written on it. In the ordinance, a lot is spelled out, LOT, is spelled out as having one frontage on a corner site. And it's up to the developer to choose which elevation or which frontage he wants his main frontage to be. There can only be one frontage. And the sign ordinance specifically is for signage frontage. It is not for anything else. And I believe the word it says, that says for sign purposes, you can use, combine the two frontages to get greater than 100 feet of frontage. So I believe that the number of parking spaces required for the proposed building is the full amount. I believe it's 78. I'm sorry, 58 spaces, and 18 of which goes to the medical use dental office, I believe, and the rest go to the food service part of the building. There's no way that I believe you can logically allow for a 43% reduction in parking because of that. I think I have no problem with the dental being there. I have no problem with the food service being there. But the two of them combined on that particular site, even with the expansion, is too much building, too much development in that area. And I believe that you may approve it tonight. I mean, I'm going to be back in 2 days to the BZA, and I have each of the requests. I have a reason that I'm going to be stating that I'm against that development on that site. So that's my presentation. That's all I have to say. You may have this. I only made one copy. I'm sorry, but you can copy. It's got the ordinances written on which sections I refer to, and you can talk it over with whoever you want to.
Okay.
Can we ask a question? Oh, yeah. Yeah, let me ask that. Where is your property? How are you being affected by this? That's a good presentation.
Thank you. My property is on Harmon Drive and Farm Drive, immediately to the north of the First Watch, the vacant lot behind the First Watch Vitamin Road.
Somewhere back Waters Drive.
It's actually over in this direction, over here. It's 2 streets over.
Would you be personally affected of this?
I would not be personally affected by it. I'm concerned because right now I am fighting the rezoning of the BO district to the B1, and this came up, and it's the same type of development that will affect residential areas behind it. I'm speaking for the resident that's going to be stuck with this building behind them.
Did you bring those residents to see how they're affected? Are you representing them?
No, I represent myself and no one else. I have not spoken with anyone else. I just believe that in order to maintain the intent of the codes and the protection of the homeowners, that the developments of this need to be strictly regulated and not variances given.
Have you told these other people that might be affected down in the future? Have you told them that this might affect them?
I have not. No, I have not. I would have to assume that they were notified in some way, whether it be by the newspaper or by mail. I'm not sure the procedures for this.
Okay.
But I believe that they would have to be notified
Sure.
for a BZA hearing, and there will be one in 2 days. I have to assume that they have been notified and are aware of what's going on here.
Just, this item is on our revised agenda tonight, but I don't think we can take any approval action on it because we're waiting for the BZA.
Yeah,
So I think it's on here just as a discussion point, because there's some driveway issues I think that Mr. Ross wanted to discuss. But we still can't do anything.
Yeah, they're kind of flipped around.
It's definitely got to come back.
But I will be back in 2 days, to the BZA and mentioning my objections to parking being a major one, and obviously the setbacks and screening as well, so.
Okay. All right, well, thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It's nice when somebody actually has some comments. Is there anybody else? Yes.
Just like to make a quick comment here. Sylvia Hannington, Hampton Drive, Macedonia. I read in the paper of all the variances that were requested, and that particular area has a lot of traffic issues right now. It has, and listening to the layout that Mr. Repack just talked about, it sounds like the compression of the area with all that capability, sounds like it's another issue that's similar to the one behind First Watch. And we had a public hearing on First Watch in front of council, and the lot behind First Watch, and there was a lot of comment. Mr. Repack wrote a 50-page document that he gave to council, documenting what he thought were the errors and how this was handled. I'll just say it this way. I agree with the main point he's making. We are highly developed at this point. Almost anything that's done is going to impact somebody. But we should be following the regulations in that code. We should not be doing massive, in my opinion, massive changes to the regulations to allow that development, because we have already a situation where there's a lot of traffic and a lot of discomfort with what's going on there. So just my comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments? Oh, all right, we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All right, all in favor? All right. So that is 5:26. We'll start up the regular meeting in about 4 minutes.
I'd like to highlight the mark there. Can't do that.
And then like monitor DVD. Then you should say should be
Is there a, I'm here for planning commissioners, or a sign-in sheet or anything in a gym?
There's an agenda.
Agenda's up there.
Yeah, sign or a sign face sheet.
See where you're at.
This is it.
More to come.
542.
What's that? Yes.
Third one down.
Okay, thank you.
All right, call to order the Planning Commission meeting of July 18th, 2016. Get a roll call.
Mr. Cox?
Here.
Mr. Kozar?
Here.
Mr. Chabon?
Here.
Mr. Westbrook?
Here.
Mr. Copeland?
Here.
All right, first order is approval of the May 16th Planning Commission meeting minutes. Can we get a copy of those, take a look through them? Pretty good. Anybody have any comments? I'll make a motion. Make a motion to approve. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Good there. All right, first thing on the agenda is the conditional use medical office of the B1 district. Mr. Grasso. Come on.
Good evening, John. Brian Grassless here with. Met most of you made a presentation last month, so I think everybody's pretty familiar with what we're asking for. One of the steps in the approval process is to get a conditional use for Aspen Dental, who will be the medical user here. And present during the public hearing. Really, I have nothing to add. Just a point that the gentleman did make about the lot directly behind us. If you look at your zoning map, actually, 2 lots behind us, both are zoned B1. So both of those lots could be combined and developed in the future for commercial use, respecting setbacks. So I think there's a little bit more land area there than maybe was presented to the board. So, but that being said, really just any of your questions that you may have with me on the conditional use. I know we're also, if time allows, have a little discussion about access. I'm not sure where in the agenda that would fit when we would talk about that.
See, Brian, you got, these are new comments, I'm sorry, I didn't realize this is.
Yeah, I did prepare a memo regarding the conditional zoning certificate application. Did you want me to
Yeah, if you can go over that.
summarize it? Do you want me to
Summarize
read
However
it?
you want to do it.
Okay. Well, it's a report dated July 17th regarding the conditional zoning certificate for Aspen Dental, the medical office piece of this project. As it's been pointed out, the B1 district does allow medical offices, but conditionally permitted. That's why we're here this evening. From a use standpoint, I really don't have any concern about the use, but I do think that as part of your conditional zoning process, you have the ability, and your code states such in 113704, to look at sort of performance criteria related to the use. And I just bring up again the driveway location issue that I brought up in my site review for this project. I brought it up once again in the conditional zoning certificate review, that the right in at the near the entrance of Waters and 82, in my opinion, is a bit of an issue for potential conflict points with traffic exiting the drive-through. And in the code, 113704 B6 does talk about avoiding creation of hazardous traffic conditions. So I think it is the purview of the Planning Commission under 113704 to discuss the traffic issue. The applicant said he wasn't sure where it would fall on the agenda. It seems like it would be an appropriate time to have that conversation, even though it's a site-specific issue. It is an issue that's taken up under the conditional zoning certificate chapter. Beyond that, I really have, again, no particular concern with the actual use being presented. Just again, feel that we need to have a discussion about that particular item.
Anybody else have any, do you have any comment, anything new?
Yeah, Chairman, I don't have any prepared comments due to the last second nature here, but I guess the only thing that I would add on to what Brian had to say was we might want to consider requesting a traffic study here for this development for a couple of reasons. First of all, we know we have the right-in entrance lane that has been talked about, and there's a lot of opinions on that, so a traffic study could help to clarify some of the questions regarding this entrance and also any effects that this development might have on the intersection, the traffic light at Waters and 82. We've got a couple of short turn lanes on Waters coming into the traffic signal. We've also got a left-hand turn, dedicated left turn lane on 82 to make a left onto Waters, which is going to see some impact here as well, especially with a drive-through Starbucks. Something the nature of a drive-through Starbucks, which is going to have certainly a rush of traffic in the morning. So, but that's the only additional thought that I had on this topic.
Okay, thank you. Before we get too far, I guess, so is there an action to be taken in terms of approval of the conditional zoning certificate? That's something we should consider. That's what we're here. That's why it's on the agenda this evening.
Yeah, you will need to take some formal action for the use request, which again for the medical office requires a conditional use. And again, from that perspective, from a planning and zoning perspective, I don't see any concern with approving it. I just think that again, one of the performance requirements of any use, a conditional use, is to examine some sort of more finite details. In this case, the traffic in the driveway, and I think again that's under 113704. You have that authority as a commission to review that issue prior to any sort of approval or disapproval of a conditional zoning certificate.
All right. Okay. Thanks. So I guess we can't take. We can take an action on that without the BZA. The other stuff, BZA will be concerned with the site. I guess, do you guys have any comments before we maybe jump into some of these access plans?
Go ahead, Jim.
I remember from last time you were here, I think I made a comment, and I think we agreed on it, that despite the configuration inside of the traffic, that was sort of like out of our control, basically. The city engineer brings up a good point. I think I agree with him that we should have a traffic engineer look at that. Furthermore, when I was looking at this recently, I have to say very honest that I have to reconsider what I said at that time, because looking at this, the interior traffic patterns in here are somewhat confusing, and I think they would add to the congestion that's already existing in this area. Okay, I think very honestly, it has to be simplified somewhat. And what for example, I'll give you an example here. I see 2 lanes of traffic coming one way here. Oh, 2 lanes coming in one direction, and all of a sudden I got a lane coming opposite the other way too in here. And I'm not sure how that's going to operate or whatever. It may work on paper or whatever, but you get some people going to dental or whatever there in a hurry. I don't see they're going to see 2 lanes of traffic coming at them one way, I think, and they're coming in the other way, and I think that's going to be a problem, to be honest. Also see some problems in back over here. Coming in this side over here, I'm not so sure that that's going to interfere or not with people coming out of Starbucks after they get their coffee. Very honestly, and very confidentially, but very honestly, my own opinion is, I just have real strong concerns about the traffic pattern inside there. I just don't think it's going to be something that is going to resolve itself. I don't think what all people and everything. The other thing, I think the gentleman who gave the presentation before, I think what will happen, if this gets approved like this with the traffic pattern, I think that's just going to add to the confusion, and it's going to add to the more of an outcry, I think, in this area here, because it's just going to cause more problems there. I'm not against having these facilities here. My point is, I don't like the traffic pattern the way it is in there, because it's just too confusing, I think. Okay. I don't know if there's a solution to that or not. Maybe a traffic, the suggestion from the traffic engineer might address that. But I just see real problems with that.
I'd like to chime in on that. What Joe said, I kind of agree with. We had 3 options came over the internet. I don't know if you saw those. You had A, B, and C, the options.
Yes, sir, we produce those.
And it's almost the same thing Joe says. It seems like cars can come in from 82, they can come in here, and they seem to you have arrows going around this way, and then other arrows going the opposite way, which is a bit confusing. I don't know why everybody can't just go counterclockwise to get in and out of that place. That's what I would think would be the way to get in and out of that place, was counterclockwise. And then you wouldn't have people running into each other. That's sort of my thought on that. On the other point, I don't know if this is even relevant, but the gentleman there brought it up. We have to follow our ordinances well. A variance is right in the code, so that's what they're there for, is for variances. They're only asking for 7 less parking, and that would help the traffic, I think. They have 7 less cars in there. So that's the only variance that seems to be significant on that one. And just like I said at the last meeting, I don't think the parking, they say, well, they have to be careful about parking. You know, it's too crowded, no one goes there, as Yogi Berra, you know. So it would be less crowded with less parking, I think. So those are the only 2 thoughts I had. If there's some kind of pattern you can make that keep them all going one way, I think that might help. But it might be up to a traffic engineer to figure that out.
Yeah, I think we're going from 50-ish spaces down to 33, so we are losing. I don't have a document from the last meeting, but we're losing a significant amount of spaces. So I know there was another option, another avenue that they could take for a corner lot, but they're definitely, I think the 62-foot option turn in off of this Waters is the only option, really.
Yeah, I like that because it pushes it down farther, but I like the option B, the way it separates it, and they got kind of an island in there to keep those apart. And I know why you can't do the combination, because you've only got so much room to squeeze an island in there. But I kind of like both those pieces.
Yeah.
But go ahead, I'm sorry.
I mean, at 8 o'clock on a weekday morning, you can't tell me there's not going to be traffic on 82 from this parking lot, people trying to get in and out. And then, yeah, this is the right turn lane.
Well, I mean, I suppose I should respond. I'm not exactly sure how or what you would like me to respond to. I'll take what I consider one of the easier issues to deal with is parking. As was pointed out at the last meeting, there is I don't don't know the correct term, maybe a conflict in your zoning code. If this building was bigger, I would need less spaces. If we have 100-foot of frontage, in other words, if I drew this building instead of 50 by 70, we drew it 40 by 100, we would meet your zoning code. Because when you have 100-foot of frontage on the street, a whole different set of parking regulations come into play. So it's the exact same use, it's the exact same amount of square footage, it's the exact same building, just drawn differently, requires different amounts of parking. So I just want to point that out to the board that, you know, we feel that the parking, our tenants feel that the parking is adequate for the uses being proposed. And trust me, dealing with national tenants, access, signage, and parking are three things that very astute about. And so, you know, we feel that the parking is appropriate. As far as circulation patterns, you know, it's set up as two-way traffic, such that, you know, if you miss a space going in one direction, now you don't have to go back out of the site all the way around again to get back in. So the drive aisles are appropriately sized to accommodate two-way traffic. You know, and again, the whole reason that we're even asking for the cut on Waters Drive is the request, and I'm not saying it's the right request or not. You know, I see pros and cons, but the existing curb cut on Route 82, of which there are two today, are full access curb cuts. We're eliminating one and taking the other one down to right in, right out only, which is probably the appropriate thing to do. But once we do that, we lose the ability for eastbound and eastbound traffic only to be able to get to this site. And that's the challenge that we're having here. And so that's why I had met with staff a few days ago, and we talked about some options we thought would be appropriate here to bring these options forward to the board. And I know there's, I have to say many heads are better than one. And we could talk this through and see if something we can work out together. You know, ideally everything would work great, but given the constraints of the site, the configuration, it is a corner site, which are always a challenge to develop, but it is a signalized intersection that I think works in our favor. And the fact that we're talking about one traffic movement, eastbound traffic, as opposed to both east and westbound traffic, I think it should work. The option B, I agree with Mr. Westbrook's statement. It does separate that traffic, but if we would try to combine separating the traffic and moving that move that cut further away from the intersection, I think what you actually end up doing is maybe creating more of what the issue that your planner has pointed out, that his real concern is the conflict of people leaving out of the drive-through and those people coming in from Waters Drive. So that's why I feel that the separated lane scenario is probably the best scenario. There's approximately 3 to 4 car lane stacking here before, as you exit the drive-through from when you pick up your product at the window, before you even get into the traffic pattern. So there's ample time there, both visually and if a need be to stack, there's enough room to stack a couple of cars to allow clear traffic to come in off the Waters Drive before you have to enter that traffic. So, yeah, it's not an easy site. We agree, but our engineers and our designers feel what we presented here is probably the best case scenario. So, but again, I mean, we'll continue to work with you and your staff and you know, come to a resolution that works for everybody. Solutions.
You're saying option B is the one is the preferable one?
Well, I'm not saying it's preferable or not, but I think it achieves the most resolution to the conflict being presented by your planner, in my opinion. But again, these 5-6 gentlemen sitting here.
Yeah, you still have basically 3 lanes of traffic coming this way and 1 lane of traffic coming this way, get it in these parking spaces. It's not.
I think if it was on B, I think it would probably, because you got down to 12 feet there, it'd probably, it'd be a single lane coming out of here.
Correct.
So you have the bypass lane coming, and then the drive-through lane itself,
They'd have to weave and merge.
yeah, we're not talking high-speed stuff, but it'd have to come down to a single lane. So if you have 1 and 1, you'd probably have to sign the heck out of this, stop signs for the drive-through portion, because you don't want to stop the cars coming in off the road for sure.
No.
You want those guys to be able to keep rolling so you don't fill it back up. And the only thing that does get kind of tough is this becomes a dead end spot, dead end of the parking lot.
Right.
Which can be tricky. We've got that at the Winking Blizzard. We've got the one-way in front of the new patio. The other side of it, you can't go back across the patio. So you pull into there, and there's no spots, and I guess you back out. That was what you pull in here, you think there's a spot here, and it's just a small car. Crap. Yeah, I guess you're backing out to backing up into here. So it's not a great situation, but I'm not sure.
If we were to make that a traffic pattern one way
In this direction,
yeah.
I guess, yeah, it's if cars observe it, which I guess, hey, you can't count for everything, but
Right.
maybe that does become a one-way in that way so that you don't have cars backing up and doing all that kind of stuff. So when this guy comes in, if he's got to stop for anything, it's just one guy backing up out of the spot and going.
And Chairman, you got to be a little careful there too, because the handicap spots are in that dead end, so to
Yes.
speak, portion, so.
Can they be brought around to the side?
That would not be the intent of ADA. ADA says they must be the closest spaces to your public
They also have
entrance.
the ability to go around.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, you don't have to only come in this one driveway. If you did make that one way, you could do the whole loop and come out to get to that. Maybe you probably would have to leave, under this pattern, you probably have to leave the side as the two-way.
I think
Just
the
because
side
if
of
you
the
come
pattern
in
needs
here,
to-
this is as far as you can go. And if you can't find something, you go ahead and turn around and so on and go back. But, I don't know, those are, I guess, just thoughts I had on the thing. But I think of the three, I wish you could get the 62 feet away from the intersection. That gets you another car length, but I don't think you can do that and achieve
No. What,
the combined.
there's no way for them that bypass lane to merge into the drive-through lane and the turning radii get too
Yes.
tight.
So of the, and what's the difference between, I guess the difference between this and this is just it's narrowed, it's the distance
It's the
that tightens that up.
So
because
that's basically our original proposal.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody else can agree, but I kind of like B the best, but I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be decided if anything would work. I guess, there's the one provision though that Brian Planner brought up about, when considering this, make sure you need to avoid the creation of hazardous traffic conditions.
Well, there's another bite at the apple, if you will. We have to come back after PCA to get final site plan approval, and that kind of wraps everything all up into one package at that time. Perhaps between now and then, we could refine and come up with the final solution.
Then that may be a good way to look at it. I mean, I think as a conditional use.
Yeah, the only thing we're looking at tonight is can we have a medical office in a D1? That's really the only thing we're voting on. I have no problem with that. There, so I'll make the motion to approve the conditions for a medical office in the D1 convenience business district.
I'll second. Do we want to discuss it anymore before we vote on it? Do we want to ask for a traffic study?
I think we asked for a traffic, Joe's recommended a traffic study, and I think that's a good idea. So, cars coming in, cars going out.
Yeah, like I said, it's not an extensive, it doesn't have to cover all the way to, but I mean, this intersection, I think, the interaction in here, so it's not just a capacity thing, it's a how is traffic, what's the best recommendation for flow, what is here, but I don't know that, you know, that would come, I think, with the site plan approval. I guess, okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
So we're just okay, we're not okaying.
No
site,
building
we're
whatsoever, just
okaying
the
design.
zoning from allowing a medical building in a B1 district.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so you got that, so I guess it'll be good to find out what happens in a couple of nights, I guess, Thursday or Wednesday night, what BCA says. I mean, that will have a huge impact on lots of things. If you don't have the parking, then,
Well, we're not,
is that,
We're not asking
we're not asking for
for
parking?
for
Okay,
parking.
okay, which is the variance?
we have a 20-foot setback requirement along Aurora Road for parking. We have the building setback along Waters Drive.
Okay.
And the third is allowing a drive-through within a B1 district.
Okay, that's right, I'm sorry, I apologize.
I know.
But I'd be curious, you know, if you don't get any of those, then things will change on your site plan.
There's no project.
So like I said, that'll be good to hear. All right, so I guess that's it for this, you'll be back, appreciate it.
So I guess I just asked for a point of clarification. Is the board going to require a formal traffic study?
I believe so, I mean, it was recommended by our engineer, I think, a couple of people, yeah.
And who is best to interface with on what the limits and guidelines of the study, how far do we have to study, what do we have to study, who's going to set up those ground rules, if you will?
I would say probably coordinate out with the engineer. If you want to do that opinion.
Yeah, that'd be fine, Chairman. And I guess, you know, I'll leave the exact limits up to you, but I think the study, I guess we'll call it the parameters of the study, should be to answer all of the questions or provide some clarification to the questions that the board has brought up. The internal traffic patterns, how traffic will be affected at the intersection, at the light, how the right-in turn lane will be used, or how will it affect traffic on Waters Drive, those types of things. So, I'm sure that they'll want to see the traffic study to either give them some confidence that this will work, or the traffic study may tell us that this doesn't quite work, we need to change something. So, whatever the case may be.
Queuing, you know, appropriateness of the turn lanes, I think you've had discussions with the administration about possible turn lane extensions, I think we mentioned, so that should at least be reviewed for the need. Queuing, traffic flow. I could work with the engineer, go with.
Well, I mean, you understand that point, Kevin.
Right. We know
what the ground rules of the study are, and then so we can present collect the data and present it appropriately, that's all.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, proposed lot consolidation for 1144 and 1164 Twinsburg Road East. Anybody here for that? Dave, come on down. Have a seat.
Thank you.
Here's. Are you?
Thomas Rose.
Okay. If you want to explain to us basically what your plan is here.
The line, okay, give you some history. We've been in the area for a long time, and over 100 years. When my grandfather had passed away, my grandmother had the property surveyed when it changed into Herding. Well, my father lives next door, 1144 Twinsburg Road. At that time, when my grandmother passed away, the survey was done again to make sure all the lines were there and correct. Well, at that point in time, nobody realized that the surveyor made a mistake. He moved a single line 43 feet further east. And what that does is intersect with my deck and the steps, so that if we sell the property and somebody doesn't like that, they can bar me from using those steps. So all we really want to do is move the line back to the original line. Our bank loan was based on the original line, and the surveyor made a mistake. And we're trying to correct that. At that time, this was back in 1994. So the city wasn't involved, and now you are. So did the steps to do the survey and then complete the processing of all the legals to just get the line moved back to where it was.
Brian, you got some comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a very brief report, and essentially, I just really point out that the lot split consolidation adheres to all the requirements of the code. It's about a little less than 10,000 square feet that's being dealt with, and as the applicant stated, it's just making one of the two parcels a little larger and the other one a little smaller. Both meet the standards of the R1 district, and at this time don't see any reason why it can't be approved.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't have any problem with what you're doing. In fact, I think it's the right thing to do, so thank you. I would point out two things. It appears that there was one dimension that the surveyor must have forgotten to put on the plat. Not a big deal. I don't think that that would stop myself or the chairman from signing the plat. We can deal with your surveyor to let him know what dimension that is. And on the legal descriptions that he wrote, he had a couple of errors or typos in there that if you use the typo, the boundaries don't mathematically close. So that's something that the county is going to need to see before they'll accept it for recording. So I have that information, and with your permission, I'd be more than happy to give it to your surveyor, Casey, it looks like, is the surveyor.
Casey.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure
I would
that,
appreciate that.
yeah, I'm sure he would
This is just the
appreciate
first
it.
step.
Sure, exactly. I'm sure he'd appreciate it, because if he submits it as is to the county for a recording, they're going to reject him because it doesn't the boundary doesn't mathematically close.
Okay.
But
That'll be wonderful, thank you.
no problem.
Yeah, those comments are in there.
Okay.
All right, anybody got any questions?
I just want one thing, maybe nosiness on my part. I called the fiscal office to see if one parcel's the name of you as trustee, and the ones, is it the other parcel you're combining with is you and Anna?
Yes.
They might give you a hard time on that. I'm going to check on that.
My wife.
Well, if you combine two parcels with two different names on them, sometimes they want to be one name. In other words, it have to be.
I think it's not
The original.
combining, right?
Aren't you consolidating the two parcels?
No.
No.
We're moving
Oh, just
on.
moving a line, okay. So maybe it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I think the way his surveyor has it set up, I think the county will accept it. I don't see why not. He's taking this strip of land away from Thomas Burrows and giving it to Thomas and Anna Burrows. So I think the county will accept that.
Yes.
You're right. If he was consolidating, then it would be a problem because there's two different legal owners. But I think he's okay in this case.
It's okay. If I die, she gets it all anyway.
There you go.
Welcome to the
word
club.
Consolidation is used in the agenda.
I think it is. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean,
So that
you're
might have
splitting
been-
off a piece, and that piece is getting consolidated with this other chunk. So this piece is being cut off of there and consolidated with this. That's where I think it gets
A little
into the
confusing.
title, but it's not a full consolidation of both full parcels. Anybody else have any questions? Anybody have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Am I the only one that signs that, or do we want to wait?
Chairman, you can,
Do we want to wait till they get, are you expecting a correct, an additional?
no, the plat, I think you and I can sign it.
Do we sign?
There's just one dimension that the surveyor didn't put on there. I think we just sign it and we tell them, hey, when you take this to the county, you can write it in by hand. It happens all the time.
Do we sign this particular one, or is there?
I don't know, has he submitted, what have they actually submitted?
There's 4 originals.
Oh, there's 4 originals.
There's 4 copies.
We probably can sign one of the originals, yeah.
Okay.
I can do the same thing as I did. Like, not here, these aren't the originals, right? You're talking a Mylar originals, that what you've got, or
No,
just paper?
He's given four paper original copies. Yeah, I would think, Chairman, that we could take one of those paper original copies, and then you and I could sign it. Then I think, as I had noted before, typically the chairman would be able to sign on behalf of the entire commission. It wouldn't require all 5 signatures.
So how do you want to do it?
Do you want me to just do you 2 then?
Sure.
It's typically just the chairman and the commission. I try to avoid signing them.
Yeah, you, all right, so there's signage for Tire Pros. That's not it. Here, come on up. Hi. Good, how are you? Good. All right. Sorry. These are pretty easy, but why don't you go ahead and explain to us what's going on?
Okay, at any rate, as you know, Hershey's is no longer there. The business was acquired by City Tire Pros of Zanesville, multiple locations, and they saw an opportunity in this community, and the timing was right because the gentleman that owned Hershey's retired, and so that's how the thing came together. As you can see from the before and after pictures, there's a Hershey's sign and a Yokohama sign, and they changed the name to City Tire Pros, and if you're a Tire Pros dealer, you're a dealer for those brands: Goodyear, Continental, Firestone, General, and Mission.
So this is just replacing the panels inside the.
Just replacing. These are actually 2 different signs.
Right.
Okay, and so all you're doing is replacing the plastic bases.
Brian, you want to go over yours?
Yeah, very brief report. Essentially what the applicant just said, it's a signage replacement, rebranding, new business. Property zone B1, no issue at all with the signage at this point. I just pointed out that the Yokohama portion of the sign was approved in 2014. This doesn't appear to be increasing any of the sign area, simply replacing the faces. And regarding the colors, red, white, black, those are very common in the city. There's no sort of approved sign package for this particular building, so I see no issue and believe it can be approved at this time.
All right, thanks. Do we have anything?
No, I don't have any, Chairman.
You guys got any questions? All right. Crazy, entertain a motion.
sending me, so.
Yes, all right. Is that, anything else you care about, anything you mention, or for about any other issues or anything? You're good? All right. Good. Sure, I agree. Just a second, I'll sign this thing here. Yeah.
James Vitale from CEG 1 LLC.
Vitale?
Yeah, V-I-T-A-L-E.
Okay. All right, James, tell us what's going on.
Well, I submitted, this was for preliminary plan approval, although after looking at the planner's comments, that may not exactly be the case, but we'll start from there and see where we head. This is known as Spruce Hill Block E. It is part of the existing Spruce Hill subdivision. It may be helpful to go back a little bit and give some history as I understand it, and then obviously, engineer and planner, everyone else can chime in. This was originally presented to the city all the way back in 2000 as a PUD. And in March of 2000, came to Planning Commission first to go over what the PUD plan was for the entire site. That site consists of the first phase, which is currently been built out, except for 2 lots, but it's a platted phase consisting of 35 lots. Then there was a second part, which is this Block E, and then there was a remainder part in the back, which you have to go under the CEI tower to get to, which would contain another roughly 36 lots. I believe it's about 20 acres back there. So it was originally submitted to the city, like I said, in March of 2000 as a one overall site plan PUD. There was some back and forth, obviously, with the Planning Commission. And then my understanding is in April of 2000, with some changes, obviously, stipulations, the first PUD site plan for the entire development, which consisted of 89 lots, was approved. Thereafter, the developer then, the old developer, who's no longer around, but was around back in 2000, came back in March of 2001 and sought to revise that PUD and change some aspects of it. I actually have, on the other side of here, the site plan that he provided, and it's in the notes, but 31401 site plan is what he submitted back in March, or say March or April. March of 2001 to get the revised site plan approval of the PUD for the entire site.
Just that first loop is built.
Yes. So yeah, to give you a visual, the first loop right here is built. These two lots are empty, no homes have been built on it, but this is platted. This is currently a platted subdivision, Spruce Hill subdivision. These are the other 2 portions of the development that were going to be built out. This is the one I'm focusing on today. It's known as Block E. It was platted as that. It appears from everything I've read, it was meant to go from here to here, and then this was going to be the next part. From everything I've read in the past. So this was the original plan as approved, the PUD revised one that was approved. And the site plan for this front part pretty much follows, I mean, there was a final plan that was submitted in final plat, but it looks almost identical to this. And that was in 2001. I believe final plat approval for that first phase was in 2003. And then 2004, there was a minor plat adjustment amendment, but that first phase is generally what you see. My intention with this submittal, which is what you have in front of you on the opposite side of this, is to stay within the bounds of that PUD that was already approved way back. I don't want to rock the ship here. I looked at this property originally in 2012 and spoke to the board of directors of the existing homeowner association and got a lot of good feedback back then on what they wanted, and it didn't match with what I could do at the time. But since then, I revisited the property and I'm before you today because I think I can do and stay within the intent of the original PUD and continue on what was started all the way back in 2003. What I'm proposing, the original plan, and I'll let you guys verify this, But the original plan actually called for 18 lots on Block E. As you can see, there's a lot of shared driveways, which is what originally approved. 1, 2, 3, and they're pretty tightly packed into there. My proposal is actually more spread out, and it's 17 lots. I thought it was a better layout overall for everyone involved. I thought it provided more space for the lots in here, to be quite honest. Cuts down on the shared driveways, which from my past experience can be issues. I wanted to cut down at all, as much as possible for that. So that's the way we laid this out, which was with 17 lots. So whether that is an amendment to the existing PUD, I'm not quite sure, but my goal here is to exist under the current PUD as much as I possibly can. Because I think it's a good plan and I'm going to continue. With regard to some other items, my goal is to submit this to the homeowners association that's currently in place. I spoke and met with the board of directors about 3 weeks ago and kept them up to date with the plan. They reviewed the plan. They were in favor of it when I met with them. And I don't want to speak for them, but when we talked about it, their main concerns was making sure the lots were the same as this. It would flow into this development. And their other concern, believe it or not, was the less they really have to maintain over here, the happier they are. And the reason is these are private roads that lead in here. So they already have to have a reserve on hand to pay for those private roads. They want it to look nice, but they're not looking for too much to take care of because they already have a lot to take care of. So in my discussions with them, what we decided and what we talked about, not decided, but talked about, was parking was an issue up front. So what I did, as you can see in the island, is we tried to provide as many parking spots as possible, and we provided 17, one for each lot here. Because that was a concern up front, is there wasn't enough parking. So I wanted to make sure this cul-de-sac would have as much parking as possible. The second issue back here, which was a very good concern, which I didn't think of, but we tried to design for it, is where do you put the snow in the wintertime? When it piles up and you got to move it, you're back here in a cul-de-sac. And I know people love to have structures and things in the middle, but the snow has to go somewhere. And that was a pretty smart concern they brought up, and we tried to address it with providing grass past the parking spots, so there's places to put that snow. Sometimes people just don't think of that, and that was a good point. So that's what we try to do in the island here. Like I said, my goal here is to submit this to the homeowners association and make this all part of the existing HOA. As for any other concerns, this is a private road. The homeowner association documents themselves provide successor developers access to that road, and the deed itself provides access for construction traffic to successor developers as well. And I've spoke to them about that. I've also offered them that I'd be happy to video the existing road because it is private to get a record of its current condition, and that if there's any construction damage and traffic damage caused by our activities, we'd be happy to pay for that and fix those roads. Some of the other concerns I saw in the comments was these roads currently do not have curb or sidewalk. Since it's a private road, I believe under the PUD code section that you're allowed to continue that. And that's what I want to do. I continue the existing road spec and bring it right into here. And not add curb and sidewalk, because that's not what that community is really was built for. As for homes, almost forgot the important part of it.
Could you bring that, as long as you have it in your hand?
Yes, yes.
The other side, the old side, so I kind of look at the old side, what you're presenting.
Yes.
Thank you.
As for homes, I wanted to stay with a local builder and a quality builder. That was one of the concerns that was brought up last time I visited this 4 years ago. Most of the existing homeowners weren't thrilled with names like Ryan Homes. They weren't very thrilled with names like Pulte. So I wanted to address that this time around, and I wanted to go with a local builder who has a product in the area and a product that's known for being a quality product. So Koblenz Builders is the home builder I want to go forward with on this project. Like I said, he's local. He's known as a quality builder. It checked the box of not using the Ryan Homes and Pulte Homes that everyone else was so set against years ago. And in my meeting with the boards, they still seem set against. So they seem pleased that we were going to use a local builder. he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different models here. I believe the original PUD called for 5 different models. Again, I want to roll as much as that, keep the momentum from that PUD going here as well. So then, we can avoid the lookalike issues. I believe the original PUD called for 1,800 square foot minimum. I want to do the same thing. Again, I'm trying to roll behind that old PUD freight train as much as I can because I think it checks all the boxes where I'm staying with the original intent. It's what the original homeowners, if they bought into the property, would have expected to continue. And that's what I wanted to do. I believe for an overview, I'll let you take over from there.
Brian, you want to dive in?
Sure. I've got a report dated July 16th for Spruce Hill Crossing PUD, and the applicant answered some questions I wasn't sure about. So it sounds like the original PUD a rezoning did occur, and so it just it's not denoted such on the city zoning map. So
Actually, there's I apologize. There is, and I don't know if this is completely updated, so you have to forgive me. The zoning map that I was able to find, it's not denoted on the map, but then in the notes section, it does list Spruce Hill as a PUD. And I don't
It does, yeah.
Okay, so I don't know what weight that has, but
Right.
that's what I was able to find.
But what it doesn't show is what that means, what's
Yes,
the geography.
exactly.
And so, a recommendation, just aside from this, is just clean up the map, and we should make sure what's zoned on the map is reflected on the map, just so when people look at it, including the planner, what's zoned. So that's no fault to this gentleman at all, so. But nevertheless, so if it was rezoned to a PUD, that takes care of the issue of that I raised in my bullet point number 1 about this particular development. It sounds like the minimum dwelling unit sizes are being met as well. What's in the zoning code, they're exceeding those minimums at 1,800 square feet.
What was approved, and that was a BR minimum for this as well.
Okay. And so that's different than what the code says. The code says with a basement 1,350, without 1,500. So it sounds like there were some specific performance criteria requirements attached to this development